All right, this is the follow-up, and we are following up today on a live video I had on George's Space Chat in 2020 last year. The live video was entitled The Best Seat in the House, Playing Bass Behind Singers. My guest today on the follow-up is none other but the great Gerry Leonard, the spooky ghost himself. Gerry, thank you so much for making yourself available, and welcome to the follow-up.
Cheers, George. My pleasure to see you and to be here.
Awesome. Well, same here, man. Absolutely. So for those watching, for those listening, let me give you some background on Gerry's and my work, especially in reference to playing bass behind singers. I met Gerry in, I believe, 2006, working on a workshop for the musical Spring Awakening. And at the time, Gerry was already working with the composer of that musical, Duncan Sheik, and also the guitar player and MD for none other but the great David Bowie. Now, I thought that Gerry would be a great guest for the follow-up today because his perspective on playing behind singers is unique, especially since there has been this long time association with acts like David Bowie, Rufus Wainwright, Suzanne Vega, Duncan Sheik. So, Gerry, let me open it up to you. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when speaking or when thinking about playing behind singers?
Run away. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? You know, I think, well, first of all, look, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to work with a great singer.
Yeah.
And, you know, storyteller.
Yeah.
I think the voice is the first point of connection. It's maybe the deepest point of connection for everybody musically. You know, if somebody has a powerful voice, it's got this incredible range of emotion and then, you know, and then you have the word aspect, you have the storytelling aspect or the imagery.
Right.
You have the sound and the emotional thing. And so it's a beautiful thing. You know, as musicians, you know, we have many roles, you know, sometimes as a soloist, sometimes as an instrumentalist. But then there's the other thing of, like you had said, which I think is a really good subject, is you know, supporting a singer, backing up a singer.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work, for instance, let's say with Suzanne Vega. Of late, I tour with her a lot. She's got this beautiful but fragile voice, and it's very often just her and I. Right. So my role in that situation is very, you know, it's very much the supportive. I'm the orchestra, and I've got to be dynamic. Yeah. But most of all, when, you know, I've got to find a way to make it all speak and make it all happen and seamlessly, so she feels supported, and as an artist, she feels supported, so that she can go out and feel comfortable and feel like, you know, she's in the best place she can be.
Right. Right.
What do we do with that? You know, a lot of it is in arrangements. Yeah. I think, like what we choose to do on the guitar. It's you know, the guitar is an interesting instrument. You know, it can be this amazing soloistic thing. Right. It can be loud, and then it can be super delicate and quiet and beautiful. I mean, personally, I love it. I love all aspects of that.
Yeah, most definitely. And that comes through also when you listen to you play, and when one listens to you play, or when, you know, as I had the pleasure of playing with you, it definitely comes through. Now, you touched on a couple things. One thing that I wanted to point out, and that is, you know, the accompaniment idea. And basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that we're talking about parts, you know?
Yeah.
So the importance of parts.
Yeah, the importance of parts.
Especially when playing behind a singer.
Yeah. I do a thing. So going back one step, you know, when I do my solo stuff, I'm very interested in the sonic aspect of the guitar, as well as the, you know, more straightforward chordal thing. Right. And then, you know, I've been experimenting a lot with, you know, creating stuff live using loopers and stuff. I've been doing that forever, it seems. And I love the idea of creating an environment. So very often with, say, for instance, on the Suzanne show, we'll do everything from where I'm just kind of ghosting her, no pun intended, on a song like Gypsy. She'll play her acoustic guitar and I'll just follow her.
Right.
Because I have a different kind of tonal thing going on with the guitar. So her guitar is in the forefront. I mean, if somebody's listening, they're looking at Suzanne, they're seeing her play the acoustic guitar and singing. And, to maybe the untrained musician kind of viewpoint, that's Suzanne playing the guitar and singing. Right. And what I'm doing is I'm actually playing her part, but I'm playing it with a deeper and more kind of sonorous sound. And then I'll step out and take a solo, and I'll bring in another thing for the chorus, so it appears to lift the chorus, and we'll come down for the verses and stuff like that. Very simple. Right. A lot of it's in the touch, right? Right. And in that case, I'm not looking to do anything different than what she's doing. I'm actually looking to reinforce what she's doing. So that's one way of going, is to just take what the artist is already doing, and she plays acoustic guitar and sings. So I'm in there. I'm not playing in a different register. I'm playing capo 2. I'm playing a G shape, what she's playing. It's a beautiful tone on the guitar. It doesn't need fixing. So I do that. Right. We'll do a song like Blood Makes Noise, for instance. And that came from a record that she did with Chad Blake and Mitchell Froome. So it's the record, when you hear it, it has an anvil beat and a kind of crunchy, distorted thing, and things coming and going. That's something where I will, I'll use my looper and I'll loop the riff with an octaver on it, because it's just me. And then what I'll do is I'll turn that off and I'll play the verse part. But when it comes to the solo, I'll kick the loop back in, and then I can play a solo on top of it. Right. And then within that song, I actually I think I loop things maybe 3 or 4 times and erase them as I go and change it. I mean, hopefully to the audience, they don't even notice that. But what's happening is there's a shifting thing, but I'm able to layer my own guitar playing in a way that's, so I can be my own rhythm player and I can be the lead player. Right. And then I can also, I'll use a big muff fuzz box on that. Yeah. On the electric side of the guitar, which is pretty gnarly. Yeah. I mean, I dial it back in terms of level, but it's super saturated. But it gives the song so much attitude, and then I can take a solo at the end. And it's a bit of a showy piece for us, because it's definitely not Queen and the Soldier, where everybody's like, oh, what happens? It's kind of like, turn it off, it's too loud. So but within the set we have stuff that goes from folk to more like alternative rock. I mean, we're not. I'm not trying to be Led Zeppelin there, but it is pretty gnarly, and it'll stand up on a big stage and dial it back for a club. And somewhere in between, there's other stuff where she'll play like a song like Calypso. Again, she plays it, because she writes it on her acoustic guitar, and she's got her own kind of style of picking. It's a little unusual the way she uses her voicings and stuff, which gives her sound. Like we were talking about parts, the voicings, very important. And that one, I'll use a volume pedal and a sometimes a pitch shifter, and I'm doing this really kind of ethereal background stuff that comes and goes, take a little solo, but it creates this like kind of bed, like a cloud, like incense. It's like, so now you have an acoustic guitar and a voice, but you have it surrounded by this kind of textures. Yeah. So, go ahead. I give those things a lot of thought, in terms of like the arc of a show. And I'm never trampling on the singer. Yeah. That's one very important thing. I'm always very respectful. You can hear her voice super clear. Yeah. I'm not in her register. I'm not interfering, but I can provide the contrast. When she's not singing, I can take a solo, or I can create these different environments. So hopefully the show from over an hour and a half, you have nice these flow it's a journey.
Yeah, most definitely. No, and I mean all of this, the way I hear this, or the way I interpret what you just said is speaks to the importance of parts, and the definition of what a part may be can vary depending on what the circumstances are, of course. Like with Suzanne and yourself, it's just the two of you. So obviously there's going to be some harmonic content coming from Suzanne, meaning from her guitar, but most of the rest of the harmonic content is coming from you. The rest of the accompaniment, the rest of the parts, so to speak, is coming from you. And that's something that, I try to convey in the live video, that there is this adherence to parts, right? There is, perhaps less of an improvisational element, but more of an interpretive element that, very, very much speaks to, okay, this part needs to happen behind this melody, behind this set of lyrics, et cetera, because it just goes together, right?
I think you're right. I think, it's almost like, in a sense, when you play classical music, for instance, I studied a little classical guitar, and I would play a piece for a year, if I was doing it for an exam or whatever. But the thing is, I play what's written, because it's Bach or something. I play what's written. I'm not improvising. Nobody wants me to improvise. Nobody wants to hear my interpretation of what Bach might have done. We're hearing that. So where's all the focus going? The focus is going in interpretation, tone, dynamics, and making it seem like it's happening for the first time. So yourself, when you're playing the piece and it's feeling good, it's feeling fresh. It's not feeling stale. So a lot of the time for me, I think with singers where there's a set piece, it is a little bit like that. All your energy is going into making it sound fresh. But hopefully you've worked out the part, or the registers. You might still you're always evolving in little ways, better fingering, better tone, or a new part or whatever. But essentially it's about, when we play night after night, I'm not like wildly being improvisational, because I get the hairy eyeball from Suzanne. She'd be like, "What the hell's going on over there?"
Well, as she should, she's in the front. She has to sell the show. She has to sell the music, the songs, the lyrics. She has, the stories to tell, all of that. So, in order to do that, as you already pointed out at the beginning, like, there needs to be a background happening that allows the storyteller to come forth and take the audience on this journey. I totally get that. Let's juxtapose that position, because you are right there. You are just the two of you, basically. Let's comparison is not the best word, but let's juxtapose that with the situation you had with Bowie, where the band was a lot larger. You had a full-size band, 2, if not 3 guitars at times, at least 2 keyboard players, 1 bass player, drummer. I mean, there was a lot more going on. So in terms of playing behind singers, and especially, let's also not forget, this is like one of the most iconic voices in our history, right? So how do you approach that, or what are your thoughts on that, playing behind this particular singer?
It never ceased to amaze me when I start to play, with other musicians, like in a trio quartet, how as that number grows, my role not diminishes, but it's up to me to play less.
Right. It focuses, perhaps.
I've got to now. I have to become a role player, as opposed to the if you were the guy on the piano and using both hands and giant chords, now you're this guy.
Right.
You're playing like this line. Right. And this is a carved out melody, and it's a great part, and you get a good sound, and you just hang on to that and you play that. It's a rhythm part.
Right.
You're part of the bass and drums. Yeah. Your job is to be part of the bass and drums. It's not to be like, hey, look at me. It's kind of like the Carlos Alomar stuff, for instance, on Fame or whatever. Beautiful parts, percolating parts. Yeah. So you're a rhythm player. You're playing you're taking a line like like a line from another player, or something that you've written as a part, and you're making that sit on top of this giant sound. So it's a different role in that you have to kind of like be a little bit more designed and specific with the sounds. They should read well in the band, in the mix. So the choices that you make, and also like the registers and all that kind of thing. And sometimes, so with David, we got into this thing where, because some of those records are sound so great.
Right.
I mean, especially when we did like earlier stuff, say we're doing, Ziggy or something like that. I mean, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel with Ziggy.
Right.
We wanted to kind of like play it like it sounds on the record. It's very tight and powerful.
Yeah.
And so how can you make that like this, thunderstorm,
Right.
but it's tight. And so, the guitars very often double each other. So we're not playing like, nobody's playing blues here, playing blues licks, hopefully. You're playing, you're doubling down on the power chord, and the riff is da 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 da. Yeah. That's it. We're not playing any other version of that. Right. And finding that on the guitar, and everybody's like, oh, this is where Mick Ronson, this is where he played it, or this is where he played it, or whatever, so finding the more authentic ways to play it, right? But again, to make it sound like it's coming from the record. And then of course you have to bring it to life. It's not just like, looking at a photograph. It's like it's gotta come to life.
Yeah.
I got my role with David was, I mean, we covered a lot of songs. I mean, at one point we had upwards of 65 songs in the songbook. Yeah. And you're playing everything from like Let's Dance, and I'm doing like a Nile Rodgers thing with a very specific delay and very specific sound, to like stuff that Fripp had done, whether it's Fashion, something like that was a crazy kind of like atonal solos and stuff. Or you're doing stuff like Ashes to Ashes, which is this weird mixture of things and styles. So it was a lot of stuff, but we really tried to be authentic, without being like a cover band. We were being authentic to the sound.
Yeah, and making it sound fresh every time you played it. A million people have heard the songs already, but those at the concert are coming there for the first day or for the first time and want to hear it, as fresh as possible. I totally get that. Yeah. Now, let me
finding it on the instrument too, George, so that it breathes and it's fun to play. And you're not like, it's not like, if it's overly complicated, sometimes it's like, why is it so complicated? Nobody's enjoying this. You're not enjoying it. The audience is not enjoying it. The singer's like puzzled. Yeah. So we you try and make it breathe.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps there's also like the discovery happening that certain things, as we well know, like certain things work great in the studio, and don't necessarily translate as well in a live setting, right?
Exactly.
You can put it together in the studio, but live might get tricky.
Yeah, like if you're acting and you're acting for camera, tiny gesture is going to make it be all you need, a nod or turn of your head or whatever. If you're on the theater stage, that gesture has to be a little more. Yeah. And I think it's a similar
that's a good analogy
to what we do in the studio. I was remembering there too that like David called me up once and asked me to do a solo version of a duet version. He said he wanted to do just guitar and voice of Loving the Alien, for it was a Tibet House benefit we were doing in Carnegie Hall. Yeah. It's funny, he called me up and he was like, do you want to play Carnegie Hall with me on Saturday night? I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And then he was like, well, I want to do Loving the Alien. I wanted to start on a C and see it Friday for the rehearsal. I was like, whoa. And that was it. That was a trip. But I did get this little, I had a little loop of the kind of motif. And I found a way to make it speak on the guitar, and I played it for him, and he just came in singing, and we ran it down, and he was like, we'll do that tomorrow, and he walked out of the room, and that was it. And suddenly we're on stage in Carnegie Hall doing that. Yeah. Talk about being thrown in the deep end, but that arrangement stuck, and we did it on the reality tour. We did it every night. Nice. It was a beautiful moment. Yeah. To take from this, juggernaut of a band, come down to this like guitar and voice for a moment. It's such a powerful song. Right. So it was a great honor to do. and it's out there if anybody wants to check it out. But it's another maybe example of what I'm talking about finding just those right set of things. Like there's a little moment with the melody. There's nothing showy about it. It's very simple, but it's really supportive to the voice, and all you get is the song, and then it's success. You know.
Right. I'm just making a note. I'm just making a note right now because I'm going to put a link to that. I think I saw it on YouTube already, so I'm going to put a link to that.
Yeah, look at the one from the reality performance. Tour.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll put that into the description of this video.
Cool.
Now there's one thing, and you know, I don't want to keep
that money I owe you. Listen, it's just resting in my account, George.
Yeah, where is it? No, I don't want to keep it too long, but there's one thing that I tried to convey, and I was wondering about your take on this. I tried to convey to the audience in the live video, you know, especially, I mean, this is coming from a bass player's perspective. Among many other things that bass does in a band, but there's also sort of the responsibility of dynamics, right? In other words, if the guitar player, you know, goes soft and I don't go soft, you won't hear the guitar player, right? If the guitar player goes loud and I play soft, the guitar player is just going to stand out like a fool, basically, and there's going to be no support. So there's an incredible responsibility with the bass. Of dynamic shifts and dynamic specificity. And I find, and perhaps that's, you know, one of the reasons why I like playing behind singers so much. There is, when you play behind a singer, as a bass player, you're giving up the responsibility of dynamics because you have to follow. You have to support the singer wherever they are going, wherever they are in the song storytelling process, wherever they are in the story, right? And I was wondering, what is your take on dynamic playing behind singers? Because very often, you know, as it is with musicians and as it is with instrumentalists, there's sort of a reluctance to give up the dynamics, right? So I was wondering what your take is on that, the dynamic responsibilities behind singers. How does that change when you're playing vocal music versus instrumental music? You know, does it change at all? Like, is there perhaps no difference, or is there really a difference?
No, I think there is a difference. I think that, you know, we're talking about, you know, if we're working with singers, look, if the singer can't hear themselves or the audience can't hear the singer, game over.
You're
done. You're done. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear if they go to see a singer and you're drowning them out, you know. Now, you know, sometimes we want a bit of excitement, and it's your job dynamically to create that. And even within a song, there's an arc. Sometimes the way to achieve intensity is not through volume, though. You know, the intensity is that you play simpler and then you play a little bit more. Or they go up and you go down. Or you climb with them, you know, and it becomes a thing, but it's not a volume thing.
Right.
So, you know, I think one of the things we learn as we develop as musicians is, you know, the ability to be able to play quieter, but also sound good when you're quiet. It's not kind of like, all right, if you want me to play quiet, it's going to sound like this, and and you can kind of, you're going to huff in the corner and make it sound bad. I mean, come on, like that's no good either. So you've got to be able to play. You've got to be able to play dynamically and still make it sound sonorous. Like you can make it sound. I had to do a thing with Suzanne at Tiny Desk. You've done Tiny Desk concert, George.
Not so far, no.
Bob. Not going to remember his second name, on NPR. Anyway, he does these series of concerts literally at his desk, and there's no amplification, right? They use these little shotgun mics. So Suzanne's singing, playing the guitar, singing, you know, because she's a singer who uses the microphone. So when she sings by herself, it's really quiet. And I was like, I'll just do it with an acoustic guitar. And he's like, no, I saw you guys play live. I want you to do your thing. So I never played so quiet in my whole life. Like I had the amps, but I was on a half, you know. I mean, I could hear, I play this PRS hollow body with her, and it's a beautiful guitar. It makes a little bit of noise by itself, not like an acoustic guitar, but I could hear that.
Yeah.
And I've got all the electric stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, people come up to me and say, oh man, I saw that Tiny Desk thing. It's awesome. And I'm like, well, yeah, it was actually really hard work, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
But it does actually sound like it's all going on, but it's super quiet. So, you know, there's a thing. Drummers have it the hardest, I think.
Right.
And we all know drummers who are loud, and that's wonderful and in the right situation. But then there's drummers who can play quietly and still groove and make it sound good. And that kind of sets the level for a band very often. If it's an ensemble, like the level of the drums will kind of indicate to everybody where we're going with stuff, you know.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it's a thing. I'll tell you one funny one. I was in rehearsals with Bowie stuff for the first time I was playing with him, and you know, we're doing our thing, and he comes over and he's standing in front of my rig, and I'm like, oh, here we go, you know. And we play the song, and he goes, yeah, sounds great, Gerry. Do you want to turn it up a bit? I was like, yeah, I want to turn it up. He's the only singer I ever worked with that asked me to turn up, you know.
Best day of my life.
But he loved the guitar. He loved it loud and raunchy, and he loved that power of the kind of chaos that it can bring.
Yeah.
So you know, and if you've got a singer who can deal with that, then bring it on. I mean, we all, you know, for certain kinds of music, you know, it almost demands that kind of thing. But it's you got to be
required.
appropriate.
Yeah, no, it's certain kinds of music is totally required. I mean, this is, you know, context is everything, and you know, in the topic of playing behind singers, that context includes the storytelling, includes where the story is going, you know, includes all of it.
Yeah.
Specific word choices, lyrical choices, you know. But I think what you said, you know, was really summing it up beautifully in terms of, you know, yes, sometimes you'll have to follow the singer. You have to get quiet when they need you to get quiet in order for them to be heard. Like, let's not forget that the big boss, after all, is still the audience. And if they don't get the point, then what is the point, literally?
Yeah. And you touched upon something too with the guitar, say the guitar and the bass. I mean, as we play together as a group, whether it's two, but once it gets to be three or four, you know, the interplay between the musicians is super important. And so, I mean, I personally, as a guitar player, I love it when I know that the bass player is with me.
Right.
Meaning that if I go and take a solo, they'll come up with me, and if I go back.
Right.
So we'll often talk about that. I mean, you and I have done it many times. And the drummer as well. So you start, you know, that's when, you know, people talk about musicians listening. It's really about listening, not so much to yourself, although that's important. You know, you listen to what the other people are doing, and you try and blend with that and make it, you know, make the band move as one, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. There seems to be this is a recurring sentiment that is being expressed in these follow-up videos, especially when it comes to playing behind singers, and that is the art of listening. There's just no two ways about it. And specifically the art of listening, sort of as I'm using the wrong analogy, but as a bird's eye view, or using a bird's eye view, meaning not what you just said. Don't only listen to yourself, listen to the whole, right? And try to get the whole together and see your space in that, or hear your space in that, I should say. So I think that's an important takeaway. And I don't know. I mean, of course, that can be achieved with instrumental music as well. There's no doubt about that, because, you know, if improvisational elements are flying by you, you have to catch that, and you have to hear that and react to that, and certain types of music kind of ask for that. Nevertheless, it is somewhat pronounced when playing behind a singer, at least in my experience. So that's that was sort of the idea behind that, and I wanted to highlight that, and I wanted to see what your perspective on that was, or on that is. So Gerry, nothing else for me to say but say thank you once again for making yourself available. You know, this was an awesome conversation. I think it's such an important subject, and it's very often sort of relegated to a second tier of importance somehow. You know, because
well, you know, yeah, it is a really important thing, and it's a craft thing, and it's not something I think, you know, you just stumble upon.
right.
You kind of work at it and develop a couple of techniques maybe, and
Yeah.
you know, ways to make it work. A little bit of trial and error, but
Yeah.
you know, but it's a beautiful thing. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. No, most definitely. Most definitely. So, Gerry Leonard, Spooky Ghost, thank you once again for being here today, for sharing your insights with me and with the audience. And, you know, hopefully we'll get to see each other in the not too near, not too distant future. Oh, yeah, we need to hang out because I need to see your new Triumph.
yes,
Yeah,
that is
that's
a noisy date, oily date.
this is when I go down the street, the alarms go off. So it's I can relate.
Yeah.
All right.
I look
Well,
forward to
listen,
that, George.
most definitely, most definitely. Well, Gerry Leonard,
Okay.
thank you so much. All right.
Cheers.